Marathon County Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, number 3, public comment. I did not receive any requests for public comment. Nobody online, nobody here, so there will be no public comment. Moving on to number 4. There is a correction in this. We're going to be approving the September 22nd Infrastructure Committee meeting, the special meeting. The minutes for the September 1st were not in the packet, so we'll approve that next month at our next meeting. So I'll look for a motion to approve the special meeting for the September 22nd Infrastructure Committee meeting. Motion by Robinson, second by Dickinson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 5, policy issue discussion for potential committee determination. 5A, Marathon County Rural Bike Route Network map. And Polly, is she going to be here?
Jamie sent me a text here at 8:46. Says, I'm on my way. Might be a minute or two late, so I expect her to walk in the room here real quick. If you wouldn't mind me, or you could jump down to 6A and buy us a few minutes.
Pardon me, what, 6A what?
They'll just buy us a few minutes. Maybe Jamie will be here time or done.
Okay, so we'll move on then to, if there's no objection from the committee, we'll move down to number 6, operational functions required by state statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. 6A is County Road B, Village of Marathon jurisdictional transfer in Griesbach.
We've been in conversations with the village of the city of Marathon. There's Jamie. Perfect timing. But we've been in a conversation. There is a section of Highway B, it's about 1,600 feet, that's actually in the village limits, that runs, the name of the road is South Road of the village limits, south limits, up to 107, that is actually in the county's name at this point. Last night, the Village of Marathon has approved this jurisdictional transfer. If we would rebuild the road, the road does need to be rebuilt, they will take over jurisdiction after the road is rebuilt. And we do a few other items that would improve the drainage along there, including some curb and gutter. It's about 192 feet, any spot curb repair, and then we would be repaving the road. Once that's all done, we'd be turning it over to the Village of Marathon City for their jurisdiction. It'll be coming off our gas tax map and adding it to the village. So it'd give us a cleaner spot to turn and make all their village streets plowed the same. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Thank you. Any discussion? Supervisor Robinson, was this not discussed at finance about if there was any costs for taxes or anything back taxes on this transfer?
No.
This was there.
There's one in the village of Edgar. Where we're
I thought
looking
there
at
was one. Okay.
at a transfer, but that deals
Okay.
with the local road, not this one.
All right. Thank you. Is there any discussion from the committee? What's the timeline? Is there?
We'll be rebuilding it this summer, so probably September, October, once the construction is over, of 2023 would go over, but we're looking for the go-ahead on this so we can get going with the engineering at this fall.
Okay. So if there's no discussion, I'll look for a motion to approve this. Motion by Supervisor Straub. Second by Supervisor Gisselman. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, then we'll move back up to number 5A, Marathon County Rural Bike Route Network Map. And we have the Parks Director, Jamie Polly, and Mr. Griesbach going to handle this.
Sure, I'll kick off and turn over to Jamie. I'm a little scared when Jamie come walk in with Jerry, what that conversation was about. But so Lance had on both Jamie and I had a work plan for a couple of years. We finally got it done. To develop a bike network for Marathon County. The goal of this map was just to link cities and areas. I'll use the Big O Plain Park, for example. How do people get from Wausau to the Big O Plain Park? How do people get from Stratford to Edgar? So it was just a map. We worked with linking it together. When Andrew was here with Conservation Planning and Zoning, he had brought on a staff person, Jim Hughes. He was a student at the University of Iowa, I believe, or is he Madison?
I think it was Madison through that university's program.
Yeah, at Madison. And he actually worked on putting together some network mapping. After we got that part, we kind of reviewed it, and Jamie kind of took it from there, so I'll let you lead it off.
Thanks, Jim. Look over here. So in your packet is the plan that we came up with. One of the big goals, too, besides, as Jim mentioned, connecting everybody, was for actually his department and highway to have a plan in place for when they go for funding for these roads, because the other plans that we've had in place kind of had every county road listed as a bike route, which, and Jim can maybe explain more, but when you go for funding for that and it shows a bike route on a bridge, you have to build that bridge bigger, right? Even if we can't or don't plan to ever put a bike route there. So this was supposed to be more usable both for practicality of getting people to places and then for our infrastructure as well. So we also worked with our GIS. Preston at CPZ helped kind of recreate some of this map as well. And so we have it in-house. We can make some tweaks to it if there's anything that you see that we need to change. But we really tried to pick roads that were either county roads, or we actually took off some county roads in here that are higher traffic and looked at ways we could get people to places just using other paved roads. We do have one gravel road listed on here as Moon Road, and that is a kind of a cut through to get to the Big O Plain County Park. So we are looking to ask for adoption of this plan that we can use and publish for what we would recommend for these rural bike routes, and that Jim could then use when he goes for highway funding when he's improving these roads as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Robinson?
I note that there's no north-south, you've got J and Q going down, but, then it doesn't go down to C. Was there, when you start looking at, I know people like to do bike routes between counties. This is a good one for the inside the county, but was there any consideration of J and Q going down to C or joining with Y?
I don't recall we've ever had that conversation starting to link with other counties. We're trying to make loops within the county at this point.
Thank you. I guess if this is approved, I guess the funding would come later, but could there be any changes to it before or once we adopt this is what it's going to be?
There's always room for change. It can be moved, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, Preston in CPZ has this on file, and he helped put this together, so it's very easy in-house to make changes to it as well. So if we want to look at that connection from J down or Q down to Y, we can look at those roads kind of in there and see if there's a connection there. I don't know if all those roads are paved or how they go through, but we can look at that.
Thank you.
I know that most, like the Wausau Wheelers that bike in that area a lot, if they're going down to Point, they usually go down XX. I'm sorry. I usually go down XX, I think. And if I talked to Jim yesterday, one of the things if this is to connect places, the one thing that I see is missing is B from Mosinee to Marathon City. I think that should be added.
Thank you. Go ahead.
One thing about, we'd like to see an adoption of a plan. Yes, there can be changes to it, but what we don't want is to have the B conversation that we did have once go on for months and months and months. So, we kind of base plan, but, we need to have some relative good reasons why we want to change this plan, because, again, that was a long 4-month process to talk about the trails there. And, what we're trying to do is trying to be able to link people, and, with some of these, we'll probably still be looking at putting people on town roads, because we want to get the people off the high-volume roads as much as we can. And, that was a conversation that we had with B last time, is it's such a high-volume roads, there are other alternative routes. Let's have the people take the alternative routes so we get them off the road. We did that, as Jamie mentioned, we looked at that very carefully when we did this map. I can use Highway P for an example on the west side of the county. The original map showed Highway N being the bike route all the way to the west side of the county. And, looking at the traffic volumes, you said, why do we want people on a high-volume road when we have alternative blacktop roads that they can take to keep them off those high-volume roads? So those are the reasons why you'll see some of the roads not linked. If we would link Mosinee to Marathon, I would think we'd still be using the town roads and not the county system.
Thank you. Supervisor Dickinson?
So along those lines, there are sections of the bike route that bikes can be on, but ATVs can't. And if you look down on E, there's a portion of that where ATVs can't go on. And then it comes across and it goes over to Galvin. So you're going to have people on Galvin crossing Highway 97 along this bike route instead of staying on E. That would seem inconsistent with the thought process of what we do with ATV. Additionally, on Highway C, there's that section from just west of Roselleville to 97 that ATVs can't go on, but bikes can. And it goes along the same lines of what you were saying, Jim. And I'm just wondering why we would not allow bikes on some high traffic areas, but allow them on others, and it be inconsistent with the ATV thought process.
In regards to the Highway E one, we could actually make that small change and take them over Elm Tree to stat. That'd be a real easy change. In your question of why we have the inconsistency, statute allows us to control UTV, ATVs. Statute does not really let us control where the bikers are going. Even though we make this map, the bikers can go any place they want by state statute. Where UTV people, there is control on what roads they can go. So that's kind of the basis of why the bike routes are right. The bike routes are there.
Administrator Lerner?
Can you hear me now?
We gave you that
Oh, they didn't want me to talk. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one other, it's working. Thank you, Jerry. The one other thing I think that, I appreciate, and we should have discussion about the plan we're adopting. Another benefit, just to lay a bit of context as to why this is on both Jamie and Jim's plan of work, is that I think it's really helpful, as Jim alluded to before, that we remove the funding conversation from each and every road project, and we have a strategy with respect to where our multimodal transportation system is looking to move. And my thought process in saying that, it's not my own, but it's within your comprehensive plan, under the infrastructure goal, to come up with that multimodal transportation system. And as Jim said, what we don't want to have is, when we come up with our plan of work of what highways need to be are on our maintenance and repair plan, that then we start talking about, well, should this be Should we have an extended shoulder here? Should we have rumble strips? Because all those things, they're not policy-driven. Those are specific issues with a roadway that then we're having those conversations in the moment, and it's difficult because I know each of you are very focused on the county budget, as you very well should be. Certainly I am right now. And when we have a strategy, I think it's very helpful. So to Jim's point, I think if you want additional information, please let us know, and we can move forward in the future with adopting this plan. If you're not comfortable doing that today, I certainly appreciate that, and if you want us to bring back information, but just to give you a little bit more context as to why we're attempting to put this together. Again, both the comprehensive plan piece, and I think it's really important that staff have direction from the governing body in terms of the strategies we should adopt with respect to our annual plans of work for roadway maintenance. It doesn't serve us well to bring back a plan of work with projected costs when we don't understand that, oh no, this should be on our bike plan, and then it's an extra cost for extended shoulders and other maintenance that we would need to do. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Supervisor Robinson and then Supervisor Gisselman. Mike.
So we're going to use this, we're using this plan to drive where we look at enhancements to the roadway. And I guess that it would be helpful if we knew where the other bike routes were going. But we had earlier a discussion of off-road, dirt road, bike trails, led through the Iron Bowl and other groups that would be separate from this. But what were the goals that we were looking at when we set about trying to develop the map? Because I don't notice a lot of, if you will, grids. And I'm not an active biker, but I do occasionally bike, but you look for loops, and there are some loops, but there's not a lot of, on the northwestern side of the county, not a lot of loops, and there's no connection, north-south connection on the east side of the county. So what are we trying to accomplish with this plan?
What we wanted to accomplish with this plan was two things. One was connecting people to parks and communities. We weren't really looking at bike loops. We were more focused on, I guess, if a family wanted to take a long bike ride and go to Big Old Plain Park, what's the safest way to get there, and how much county roads does it include? Now, many families still aren't going to bike on these roads because there's too high traffic. So that's really not realistic, but what was in place was through the MPO and through the North Central Regional Planning Commission was these future bike routes, and it really included the entire county. I mean, pretty much every road, which the other side of it that we talked about is the funding piece for highway maintenance, and that's the plan. You can explain, I guess, this when you go to get funding. From what I understand, you have to show a plan and whether or not it includes a bike route. And if we only have the North Central Regional Planning Commission's plan, basically that means every road in the county is going to be considered a bike route, and that's going to cost the county additional funds, or the state or whoever's paying for it additional funds to make that roadway future bike worthy, correct?
Correct. There was a program out there for a while. Jerry probably remembers the name of it. But it was the state had a plan out there that it was any road that you built had to be bike accommodation. So when we built like a bridge out on Highway Z over there, Pearl Creek, the road is only 22 feet wide going out to it. When we built that bridge that time, and it was because of the rule, and if it's on these maps, the current rule, so we'd have to build that bridge. That bridge out there, the road is 22 feet wide. The bridge is 34 feet wide. We had to build that bridge that wide in case we'd ever expand the roadway. Well, we know some of these areas that'll never be expanded, so why are we building bridges 34 feet wide with a 22-foot road coming up to it? That state rule, transportation rule, has been turned around in eliminated off the books at this point, that's a better word of saying it. So this is what Jamie's getting to. If we don't have that, we have to adopt a North Central plan. Anytime we go build a bridge, we're going to be building a bridge 34 feet wide and having a 22-foot road coming up to it, because that's what the rules are.
Yeah, so the other part of that was, when we did this, is in our outdoor recreation, comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that Lance alluded to, it does say that we should identify a multimodal forms of transportation to connect people to parks. So it really is not for us to develop a bike loop around the county. And we're talking about multiple different bikers. You know, you have the Wassa Wheelers, as Jerry mentioned. They are a very intense road bike group that, I mean, I guess you have all levels, but
7 levels.
yeah, but they're going to go on whatever routes that they want to go on in their loops. Then you have, you know, your gravel bike riders, which is what you alluded to with Iron Bull, which is completely different. They don't want paved roads at all. So we are looking at paved roads. Really, the goal was for Jim and I to look together to figure out which county roads he can put on his plan, and how we get people somewhat safely to the parks. But, you know, long term is, if these are really the roads that we identified to get people to the parks, when Jim and his staff goes to do, you know, Highway O improvement, that they look at what the best way that is. It could be a wider shoulder. It could be even working, you know, with landowners to get a separated trail. But it's a corridor that we're identifying that should become more biker friendly.
Thank you. Supervisor Gisselman?
I move to approve this. I think we talked enough. I think I'm ready to move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second by Robinson. Thank you. Supervisor Straub, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, so in reality, this is just a plan just to have something presented to whoever it is, so we've got something on the books. Now, when I was an active bicyclist in the 70s, I was a pretty intense bicyclist back in the day, and we traveled on highways, Highway 17, riding up north, and the roads were much narrower back then. So has this become a requirement now that anything that gets built by the county has to be built wider to accommodate a certain width, to accommodate a bike, as far as blacktop area goes, or?
So what we'll use this map for is, we'll take a look at it and we'll say, okay, Highway G, for example. We'll use Highway G. We'll review that and we'll say, all right, the traffic counts in Highway G are less than 500 cars a day. The existing roadway will serve as the route. So it's going to depend on traffic volumes, but it's something for us to review each time we're on that road.
And if I may follow up,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. And I think it was discussed here that if you're going to make your way over to a park on the west side of the county, you're certainly going to choose your own route, whether it's mapped out by the county. You're going to pedal where you want to pedal. So this is just to fulfill a requirement, this map, so that you can go on to get the needed funds for highway improvement. Is
I would say yes and no if I could to that one. I mean, I believe, not so much my department, but I'm assuming Jamie's department a little bit more, where we do get requests of, you know, do you have bike map routes? How do you get down there? So I would say the majority of them, you're probably correct. There's a lot of people are going to pedal where they want to pedal. But there are people that are requesting maps so they know how to get to places.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Dickinson?
Just my last comment on it, and I know we want to end up, but I think the principle of it still exists. And the principle is, if we want to keep people safe, right, we wouldn't want to put them we wouldn't want to consider those differently. I mean, someone in an ATV, someone in a bicycle, they're not in a vehicle, they're not in an automobile, they're not in a truck, so they are put at a higher risk. So if we support the network the way it's designed, which I don't have a problem with, to me it would be likewise we would support a little expanded ATV access on those same roads, because the principle of safety still persists. Yes, we can't tell someone not to ride their bicycle on that road, but we are supporting it, and I would assume we would have a signage to say this is a rural bike network or something, right? To say, otherwise, what are we really doing other than expanding a road? And some people are going to say, well, why are you expanding that road? You would probably want to identify it as a bike network. So I'm in support of the bike network, but I do think when we look at ATV, we should be considering, when we expand these roads and that sort of thing, we should be looking at expanding the ATV access as well, on principle. So I'm kind of bringing those two issues together. The other thought I had is, I'd be interested to know what kind of cost is associated with this network, with expanding these roads. So if someone can put some thought into that over the years, if we have to go another 6 feet or 3 feet or whatever, really how that's going to impact our transportation plan, our 2050 transportation plan.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
Kevin's punching numbers right now. One thing with your ATV, UTV, your very earlier comment, I did circle, I do agree that it's an easy change, that one down off of E. We should probably, if it is approved today, we should probably have it with the change of, changing that one down on Highway E, taking it across to Elm Tree is the name of that side road, ending it at Elm Tree and taking it over to Stat.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, just show me the money. I just plugged in real quick. Normally, we pave our roads at 12 feet wide. We stripe them at 11. Going with like minimal bike accommodations would be putting a 3-foot shoulder on. So we have a 1-foot existing paved shoulder. It'd be adding 2 feet on there. So per mile then, if we're doing a full depth pavement, which is typically 4 inches, it's about $40,000 per mile. Additional to, so we'd go from if we're doing a pulverized project where we're putting down 4 inches, it would probably go from $230,000 a mile up to $270,000.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussion? Otherwise, we do have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Do you want to make the motion with that change to Highway E, you said?
E.
E, yeah.
Yes, sure, yes.
That's the motion. The second, okay with that change? Okay. All right, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jamie and Jim. And we will move back, or we'll move down to 5B, purchase property for possible future building sites. For this item, the committee could consider taking a motion to go into closed session. So I would look for a motion from someone to read that, to go into closed session. Supervisor Robinson?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Section 1985, Parent 1, Parent E, for the purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed sessions, to wit, update and discussion regarding purchase of property for possible future county facility building site.
Thank you. Second by Supervisor Dickinson. All right, thank you. We'll need a roll call vote. Could you call the roll call?
Supervisor McEwen,
Aye.
Supervisor Dickinson,
Aye.
Supervisor Gisselman,
Here, aye.
Supervisor Straub,
Aye.
Supervisor Robinson.
Aye.
All right, we are in closed session. We will have to close the doors.